Thank you for being here. Look forward to having you back as the year progresses.
Thank you for the invitation to be here. I appreciate it.
Now to the floor of the House for today's session, a vote on the rule on health care repeal expected midday.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., January 7th, 2011. I hereby appoint the Honorable Candace S. Miller to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, John A. Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The prayer will be offered by our chaplain.
Lord our God, you have shown us your glory. You have redeemed your people by the revelation of your eternal word. Let your light now shine within us. Guide us, that we may be led through the darkness found in this world to the radiant joy of your presence, both now and forever. Amen.
The Chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House her approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The pledge will be led today by the gentleman of Illinois, Congressman Jackson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Chair will entertain up to 5 requests for 1-minute speeches from each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentleman from Colorado rise?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to advise and extend my remarks.
Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, today our national debt is $14.01 trillion. It rolled over to above $14 trillion for the first time on New Year's Eve last week. On January 7, 2009, January 6, 2009, on the start of the 111th Congress, the national debt was at $10.63 trillion. This means the national debt has increased by $3.38 trillion since then, in just 2 short years. This debt and its interest payments we are passing to our children and to all future Americans. I have been submitting and will continue to submit this debt to the congressional record daily, and I will continue to do so until Washington takes responsibility and ends its reckless spending addiction. Madam Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
For what, what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois rise? Without objection, the gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, as we enter 2011, we find ourselves in the same job situation as in 2010. In order to show the huge need for jobs, I'll be collecting resumes from Americans who are unemployed or underemployed. I'll submit them for the congressional record. Unfortunately, submitting these resumes for the record will not get anybody a job. But by collecting these resumes, I hope to dramatize the shameful condition of unemployment and compel Congress to do something about it. I hope to remind my colleagues every day that we work for those Americans who've been left behind but who want to work. Today I call on my fellow Americans to send me your resume and your story to resumesforamerica@mail.house.gov. Resumesforamerica@mail.house.gov. If you're out of work, send me your resume and story so that I can use it to remind our government of the need to act. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "America has issued us a bad check. It has come back marked insufficient funds, but the vault of opportunity of this nation is not bankrupt." Madam Speaker, sending a resume to me will not put you first in line for any job, but it will put you up front and center to remind our government of the need to act. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members are reminded to address their remarks through the chair. For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan rise?
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without Without objection, the gentleman from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, while campaigning this fall, people in northern Michigan made it clear that they were not happy with the government takeover of health care. That's why I am pleased that one of my first votes in Congress will allow me to keep a promise to my constituents and vote to repeal that legislation. As a surgeon who spent more than 30 years working directly with patients, I view the government takeover of our health care system as an attack on the doctor-patient relationship. Now, as a member of the freshman class of 2010, I invite all members to join us in repealing this law and developing realistic health care reform that lowers costs, improves insurance options, and puts patients, not government bureaucrats, at the center of health care. Madam Speaker, I yield the remainder of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York rise? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, the Republican rules package passed Wednesday included a change that could be extremely damaging to our nation's highway and transit systems over the long term, and to the construction industry, where record unemployment remains twice the national average. Simply put, this rule is a job killer. The new rule will treat Highway Trust Fund revenue as general spending, tearing down firewalls that prevent funds from being siphoned off for unrelated projects. Removing the trust in the Highway Trust Fund will severely inhibit states' ability to plan large, multi-year transportation projects to improve this nation's aging infrastructure over the long term and to create construction jobs in the process. But don't take my word for it. The rule change is also opposed by business, labor, and industry organizations alike, such as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, the Associated General Contractors of America, and the American Trucking Association. Madam Speaker, this is the wrong time to back away from investments in our infrastructure and job creation, and yet this is exactly what will result from this job-killing rule. I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise?
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, more Border Patrol agents are being sent to the southern border. The border is violent, desolate, and dangerous. Drugs and people are going north. Money and weapons are going south. And the border is a war zone. And Madam Speaker, I'm not talking about the southern border of the United States with Mexico. No, I'm talking about the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. That's correct. Secretary of Homeland Security Napolitano has said, quote, "We are going to contribute Border Patrol agents to protect the border of Afghanistan." Now, why is Homeland Security making this uninformed decision? Our southern border is a war zone, and our Border Patrol agents are needed there. In fact, they need more help. We should send more National Guard troops there to help them stop the invasion of the violent drug cartels. Homeland Security should protect our homeland, not somebody else's. This ill-advised move by the Department of Homeland Security shows how blissfully ignorant Washington is about reality and the battle on the third front, the southern border of the United States. And that's just the way it is.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Connecticut rise? Without objection.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the middle of the health care debate, a gentleman came into my office in Waterbury, Connecticut, and delivered a petition signed by 3,000 people. He was fighting two battles, one against the cancer that was ravaging his body and another to keep his health insurance and prevent himself from going bankrupt. This is a situation faced by millions of Americans who have a condition and a disease that is also potentially contributing to the downfall of their entire household. This is a situation that they shouldn't be in, and this is no game, this debate over whether we continue or repeal health care. But it seems to be a game to my Republican friends. This bill isn't going to pass. It's going nowhere. When a CBO estimate coming out saying that it's going to cost taxpayers $230 billion emerges, they just throw it away and come up with their own numbers. The stakes here couldn't be more serious to that constituent and the 3,000 others who walked into my office in Waterbury, Connecticut. This isn't a game to them. It's a matter of life and death, and the stakes over repeal could not be higher. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arkansas rise? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise today with great sadness to remember one of America's great entrepreneurs, Don Tyson of Springdale, Arkansas, who passed away Thursday, January 6, 2011, following a brief illness. The son of Tyson Foods Incorporated founder John W. Tyson, Don was former chairman of the board and CEO of a company that began as a family business supplying feed and baby chicks to local producers, to a global food enterprise with annual sales in excess of $28 billion, over 115,000 team members, and operations in 5 countries. He founded the Tyson Family Foundation and is well known for his philanthropy in the fields of education, conservation, and the arts. Don Tyson's no bad days outlook on life personifies the true definition of the pursuit of the American dream. The state of Arkansas, the United States of America, has lost an original, and we mourn the passing of this industry legend. I yield back.
For what purposes does the gentleman from Tennessee rise?
The House for 1 minute, revise and extend.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today is the beginning of a process where the Republicans will try to repeal the Affordable Health Care Bill. It's about 50-50 in popularity in America. How can a bill with such individual constituent elements that are so popular, such as keeping young people on your insurance till you're 26, eliminating the donut hole, seeing to it that there's more community health centers, how can it be so unpopular? Because the Republican mantra has been, and it was even said today, a government takeover of health care. Well, PolitiFact, the 2009 Pulitzer Prize-winning journalistic group from the St. Petersburg Times, a nonpartisan group, said that was the biggest lie in political 2010. The biggest lie in political 2010. Instead of reading the Constitution yesterday, maybe we should have just repeated, do not bear false witness. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For what purposes does the gentleman from Indiana rise?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks, Madam Speaker.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, welcome to the 112th Congress. While there was much pomp and ceremony this week welcoming all the new members to the House of Representatives, this week belonged to the American people. The American people sent a deafening message on November the 2nd. It was they wanted to see this national government end this era of borrowing and spending and bailouts and takeovers and turn our national government back in the direction of fiscal responsibility and limited government. I rise today this morning to say in this first week of this new Congress, if House Republicans got the message, we will keep our promises to the American people and more. If House Republicans got the message, we won't just extend tax rates for a couple of years, we'll extend them permanently. If House Republicans got the message, we won't just find $100 billion in cuts, we'll find more than $100 billion in cuts, and we'll bring about the kind of long-term reforms that change the size and scope of government. And if House Republicans got the message, we won't just vote once to repeal Obamacare. We'll vote to repeal Obamacare again and again until we consign their government takeover of health care to the ash heap of history where it belongs. So welcome to the 112th Congress. To the American people, this is your week.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, those who want to repeal health care reform should be clear and candid about what they're doing. You just can't expect the people to understand the effect of repeal just because you put a label on it like Obamacare, or misrepresent job-creating legislation as a job killer, or misrepresent legislation that doesn't even have a public option in it as a government takeover. Health care reform, it will close the donut hole. It allows young adults to stay on their parents' policies. It means that those with pre-existing conditions can get insurance, provides tax credits to small businesses to help them cover their employees, creates health care, community health centers and additional health professionals. It prohibits insurance company abuses like cutting off coverage in the middle of illnesses or unreasonable increases in rates. It means that in 2014, all Americans will have the security of knowing that they can have health care insurance. Don't just put a label on it or recite a poll-tested slogan. Tell the public what will happen to the donut hole, to young adults, to those with pre-existing conditions, to small businesses. Tell the public what's going to happen if we repeal health care reform.
For what purpose?
Ask for its immediate consideration.
The resolution?
Under number 2, House Resolution 26, resolved that upon adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order to consider in the House the bill, H.R. 2, to repeal the job-killing health care law and health care-related provisions in the Health Care and Education Reconciliation Act of 2010. All points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. The amendment printed in Part A of the report of the Committee on Rules accompanying this resolution shall be considered as adopted. The bill, as amended, shall be considered as read. All points of order against provisions in the bill, as amended, are waived. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill, as amended, to final passage without intervening motion except 1, 7 hours of debate, with 30 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Majority Leader and Minority Leader or their respective designees, 90 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Education and the Workforce, 90 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce, 90 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Ways and Means, 40 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on the Budget, 40 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on the Judiciary, and 40 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Small Business, and 2, one motion to recommit with or without instructions. Section 2, upon adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order to, without intervention of any point of order, to consider in the House the resolution, House Resolution 9, instructing certain committees to report legislation replacing the job-killing health care law. The resolution shall be considered as read. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the resolution, and any amendment thereto to final adoption without intervening motion or demand for division of the question except 1 hour of debate equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Rules or the respective designees. 2, the amendment printed in Part B of the report of the Committee on Rules, if offered by Representative Matheson of Utah or his designee, which shall be in order without intervention of any point of order, shall be considered as read, and shall be separately debatable for 10 minutes equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, and 3, one motion to recommit which may not contain instructions. Section 3, upon adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order without intervention of any point of order to consider in the House a resolution, if offered by the Majority Leader or his designee, relating to the status of certain actions taken by members-elect. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the resolution to final adoption without intervening motion or demand for division of the question, except 4 minutes of debate equally divided and controlled by the Majority Leader and Minority Leader or their respective designees.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 1 hour.
Madam Speaker, it's a great honor for me, for the first time in 4 years, to say that for the purpose of debate only, I yield the customary 30 minutes to my very good friend and Rules Committee colleague, the gentlewoman from Rochester, New York, Mrs. Slaughter, pending which I yield myself such time as I might consume and ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, during consideration of this resolution, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only, and Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks, which I've already done, and I ask consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, House Resolution 26 provides for a closed rule for consideration of H.R. 2 and self-executes an amendment by the Majority Leader, which is required under the Statutory Pay-As-You-Go Act of 2010. This is routinely required and is similar to many provisions that have been self-executed since the enactment of statutory pay-go. The resolution provides for 7 hours of debate on H.R. 2, equally divided and controlled by the Chairman and Ranking Member of 6 committees and the Majority Leader and Minority Leader. It also provides the minority a motion to recommit H.R. 2 with or without instructions. House Resolution 26 provides for consideration of H.Res. 9 under a structured rule that provides an hour of debate and makes in order an amendment if offered by Representative Matheson of Utah. It also provides for one motion to recommit H-Res 9 without instructions. Lastly, the rule provides for the consideration of a resolution if offered by the Majority Leader or his designee relating to the status of certain actions taken by members-elect under a closed rule. Madam Speaker, it was just before midnight that my great new colleague, Mr. Webster, and I were here in this chamber, and we filed this rule following a lengthy 12-hour hearing upstairs in the Rules Committee. And I have to say that there were many discussions that took place on a wide range of issues. But I think it's very important for us to note that there were those who argued that we should not be taking up this issue because of the fact that we should be focusing on job creation and economic growth. Well, Madam Speaker, we know that the overwhelming message that came from the American people is that we have to get our economy back on track. We have to create jobs. We have to make sure that those people who are struggling to get onto the first rung of the economic ladder are able to do just that. And that's why, when we look at a $2.7 trillion expansion of the federal government, $2.7 trillion in new spending, we recognized something that is common sense, and that is, if you're going to expand the size and scope and reach of the federal government by that magnitude, it clearly is going to kill the effort to create jobs and get our economy back on track. And so that's why today, Madam Speaker, we are taking the first step in fulfilling a key promise that we have made to the American people. With this rule, we are setting in motion an effort to repeal President Obama's job-killing health care bill and replace it with real solutions. And I underscore that again because all the attention is focused on the fact that we are going to be trying to kill good provisions that are out there. Madam Speaker, we want to start with a clean slate. We are going to repeal President Obama's job-killing health care bill and replace it with real solutions. This rule takes two important steps. The first is to allow for consideration of a bill to hit the reset button, so to speak, on the very damaging legislation that was passed last year under the guise of health care reform. The second is a resolution directing each of the committees of jurisdiction to craft responsible, effective, and economically viable health care solutions. Madam Speaker, the resolution lays out very clearly what real reform looks like. Real reform will help, not hinder, in our goal towards creating jobs. Real reform will lower health care premiums by enhancing competition and patient choice. It will preserve the right of patients to keep their existing coverage if they so choose. It will ensure access to quality care for those suffering from pre-existing conditions. It will implement meaningful lawsuit abuse reform so that resources can go to patients and doctors and not to trial lawyers. In short, it will increase access to health care for all Americans without compromising quality or hurting the very important small business sector of our nation's economy. Madam Speaker, the underlying replace resolution which I've offered will begin a robust committee process to tackle the difficult but essential work of achieving these goals and crafting true reform for the American people. This will be a process in which each and every member, Democrat and Republican alike, will have an opportunity to participate. Madam Speaker, as Speaker Boehner said day before yesterday when he accepted the gavel, we are returning to regular order. Once again, our committees will be the laboratories, the centers of expertise that they were intended to be. Rank and file members of both parties will play an active role in crafting legislation, scrutinizing proposals, offering amendments, participating in real debate. Critical legislation is not going to be written behind closed doors by a select few. Today's rule sets in motion a process that will be both transparent and collaborative. But we cannot get to that very important step without clearing the first hurdle, which is to undo the damage that has already been done. Now, we will hear people say, why is it you're considering this under a closed rule? Madam Speaker, this was a clear promise that was made throughout last year leading up to the very important November 2nd election. Everyone acknowledges that elections have consequences. The commitment was made that we would have an up or down vote on repeal, and that's exactly what we are doing. We must repeal last year's bill before we proceed with replacement. Just as predicted, the so-called reform bill is having very real negative consequences for our economy and our job market. It is putting enormous burdens on job creators, particularly small businesses, at a time that is already one of the most difficult that we have faced, imposing significant new burdens and penalties while our unemployment rate remains above 9%. We got the news just a few minutes ago that it's at 9.3%. We're encouraged by that positive drop, but only 105,000 jobs were created, not the 150,000 jobs necessary to be created just to sustain the position that we are in right now. So we still are dealing with very, very serious economic challenges, and that's why we need to take a common-sense approach to first repeal this measure and then deal with solutions. Above all, I will say that the onerous, unworkable mandates that have been imposed are adding greater uncertainty, which are job creation's biggest enemy. Anyone who has spent any time talking with small business owners knows this to be the case. While the economic impact is already quite apparent, the fiscal consequences are looming down the road. While the bill's authors used a host of accounting gimmicks, and I'm going to get into those further, as I'm sure I'm going to be challenged on this, and I look forward to talking about the accounting gimmicks that have been utilized. While the authors used a host of accounting gimmicks, as I said, to mask the true cost of this measure, an honest and realistic assessment of the impact on the deficit shows a much clearer and, tragically, a far worse picture. The Budget Committee has demonstrated the real cost of the health care bill, as I said, and when I opened, is a staggering $2.7 trillion once it is fully implemented. It will add over $700 billion to our deficit in the first 10 years. The words reckless and unsustainable hardly begin to cover it. This bill is an economic and fiscal disaster of unprecedented proportions. The time to undo it before any more damage is done is quickly running out. Republicans promised the American people we would act swiftly and decisively, and that's exactly what we're doing. Some of my friends on the other side of the aisle have asked why there will be no amendments to the repeal bill. Frankly, there is nothing to amend. There is nothing to amend, Madam Speaker, to the repeal bill. Either we're going to wipe the slate clean and start fresh, or we're not. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some good provisions in this measure, but it is so onerous, nearly 3,000 pages, that we believe that the best way to do this is to wipe the slate clean, have an open and transparent process, and do everything we can to ensure that every single American has access to quality health care and health care insurance. Now, once that slate is completely wiped clean, we will be ready for this open and collaborative process to develop the real solutions that we have talked about. That's what we promised the American people as we led up to last November 2nd, and that's exactly what we will deliver here today. Madam Speaker, first we undo the damage, then we work together to implement real reform and real solutions. I urge my colleagues to support this rule, and then, after we've gone through the 3-day layover requirement next week, which is in compliance with another promise that we made to the American people, I urge my colleagues to support the underlying legislation, H.R. 2, which our colleague, the new Majority Leader, Mr. Cantor, has offered, and H-Res 9, which I have introduced, that calls for our committees to work in a bipartisan way to develop solutions to the challenges that we have out there in ensuring that every American has access to quality health care. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from California reserves the balance of his time. The gentlelady from New York.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. I appreciate my gentleman friend, Mr. Dreyer, yielding me time, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlelady is recognized.
What a week it's been. Since being sworn in on Tuesday, the speed at which the Republican Party has broken their promises has been dizzying. Speaking of the Republicans' first days in office, Tea Party spokesman Mark Meckler summed the week up nicely when he said, I quote, actually don't think it would be possible to fall from grace any faster than this, end quote. In November, the Republican leadership, led by Speaker Boehner, traveled to suburban Virginia and made a pledge to America. Their constituents, including Tea Party patriots like Mr. Meckler, listened intently as the Republican Party pledged to be fiscally responsible and serve the will of the American people. On page 6 of the Republicans' Pledge to America, the party states, and I quote, with common sense exceptions for seniors, veterans, and our troops, we will roll back government spending to pre-stimulus, pre-bailout levels, saving us at least $100 billion in the first year alone and putting us on a path to balance the budget and pay down the debt, end quote. The pledge was solemnly made by Republican leadership despite being largely panned as a political stunt. Despite their promise to follow through on their pledge, on Tuesday, aides to the Republican majority said that the pledge to cut $100 billion was hypothetical. Today, now, we're moving forward to do the exact opposite of the actions that they pledged as they introduce legislation to repeal the Affordable Care Act. If successful, the Republican legislation will add $230 billion to the deficit by 2021. This extra $230 billion won't be spent rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, teaching our children, or providing for the millions without jobs. Instead, the $230 billion will be added to our deficit in order to take health care benefits and protections from those who need them the most. For example, starting this year, the Affordable Health Care Act will begin to close the donut hole for seniors. Under the law, Medicare beneficiaries who fall in the donut hole will be eligible for a 50% discount on covered brand-name prescription drugs. Repeal this law and seniors receive no help and will be forced to pay their rising drug costs alone. Those are the types of protections that I fight for today. Fiscally, members of Congress face a $300 billion choice. According to the Congressional Budget Office, we have two options. One, do we keep the Affordable Health Care Act and save $130 billion by 2021? Or two, do we repeal the Affordable Health Care Act and add $230 billion to our deficit by 2021? That may be trouble for some, but for most of us it's easy. For me, the answer is clear, and I assume to most Americans it's clear as well. Because they can't win by simply judging apples to apples, the Republican leadership has taken to discrediting the Congressional Budget Office. Yet a quick bit of research will reveal that Republicans have long valued the nonpartisan and reliable work of the Congressional Budget Office and have publicly supported the agency before. In fact, 2009, Speaker Boehner repeatedly referred to the CBO as nonpartisan institution and relied on their estimates to argue against the Affordable Care Act at the time. But now that the CBO's estimates are detrimental to their political goals, they have taken to questioning the work. Republican Senator John Cornyn warned against dismissing the work of the CBO just because it's inconvenient. 2 years ago, he said, I quote, I believe the professionals at the CBO are doing a difficult but unpopular work. They are speaking the truth to power here in Washington and making the folks who would pass these enormous unfunded bills that impose this huge debt on generations hereafter somewhat unhappy. But I think they're doing important service by telling us the facts. And last week, I commended the director of the CBO, Dr. Doug Elmendorf, for saying that the CBO will never adjust our views to make people happy. Thank you, Dr. Elmendorf. God bless him for his integrity and commitment to telling the truth, because we have to learn how to deal with the truth, not try to remake it or to cover it up. Now, I couldn't agree more with that. The deficit estimates provided by the CBO are the singular authoritative figures upon which we make all of our decisions and have for decades. Even if some don't like what the numbers tell us, we know that numbers don't lie. I remind my colleagues that today's actions are not, quote, hypothetical, unquote. We truly face a $300 billion choice. We can choose to provide invaluable benefits to millions of Americans while paying down our national deficit. Remember that it will save $143 billion over 10 years. Or we can choose invaluable health care protections for millions and add $230 billion to the nation's deficit. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, today we are considering the first measure from the Rules Committee of this new Congress, and my Republican friends have already produced one for the record books. Let me give you some of the highlights. First of all, the resolution includes a completely closed process for two separate pieces of legislation. That means we get two closed rules in one. Now, maybe my Republican friends think they could save taxpayers money by rolling all the closed rules into a single resolution. I think that's what they meant by bringing efficiency to government. The first closed rule on the health care bill does most of the heavy lifting, blocks every single germane amendment submitted to the Rules Committee. That's not exactly right, no. It actually slips in one change without allowing the House to vote on it. The special amendment slipped in with the famous demon pass maneuver is very interesting. It allows the House to pretend that the repeal bill is free, even though the Budget Office says it will raise the deficit by over $1 trillion. That's a neat trick. And now we know the secret weapon for reducing the deficit, a blindfold. This closed process is especially troubling on the health care repeal, because this Republican bill has had no public hearings, no committee consideration, and is not paid for. The second closed rule, its two-for-one package, blocks all amendments to another resolution to correct a flaw in the swearing-in process. Apparently, the Vice Chairman of the Rules Committee was conducting legislative business before he was actually a member of Congress. Maybe amendments are not important here because no member in the House has seen this resolution, since the rule allows the majority leader to make the changes until the moment it is introduced. But if any of my colleagues are concerned about not having enough time to read this surprise resolution, don't worry. The rule allows the House to debate it for 4 full minutes. 4 minutes. Have you ever heard of a bill debated for 4 minutes? Fortunately, the rule generously gives the minority 2 of those 4 minutes, and I guess that qualifies as both efficiency and bipartisanship. Finally, the rule allows the House to consider a sweeping press release from Republican leadership, a resolution to replace real patient protections with vague rhetoric. And, Mr. Speaker, this is a very disappointing day for the House Rules Committee. Our first action of the new Congress violates the promises that we heard from our Republican friends. No public hearings, no committee consideration, a completely closed process, legislative text no member has read, 4 minutes of debate on an important constitutional issue, and so on. For all those members who were sent to Washington like I was to repair our nation's finances, create jobs for millions of the unemployed, help the millions of Americans in need, the decision should be simple. I encourage my colleagues to reject the efforts of the Republican leadership, keep our promises to our constituents, and vote to keep the Affordable Health Care law. And I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves the balance of her time. The gentleman from California.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself 10 seconds to say that Thomas Jefferson said that two thinking people can be given the exact same set of facts and draw different conclusions. Well, I've just heard what my friend from Rochester said. I will say that this is a great day for the People's House, because we are going to, in fact, be implementing the commitment that was made to focus on getting our economy back on track. And with that, Madam Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to a very hardworking and thoughtful member of the Rules Committee who was with us for 12 hours up until late last night, our new colleague from North Charleston, South Carolina, Mr. Scott.
The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Chairman, I would say that it's truly an honor to serve on the Rules Committee. My first experience was a 12-hour experience last night, all day yesterday. What a wonderful opportunity to serve the American people. Thank you, sir. This is a great opportunity for all of us in America to kill the jobs-killing health care bill that is taking jobs away from the private sector. Simply want to make 6 quick points. The first point is that we all recognize that the cost of insurance is only going up, up, and up. There is a misnomer that this bill somehow reduces the cost of insurance. It is simply, categorically not true. Shifting who pays for the insurance, the health care costs, does not make the health care costs go down. It is simply going to continue to rise. Second point, when you design a bill that has tax increase after tax increase after tax increase and say that you are reducing the deficit by increasing taxes, it is inconsistent with the reality that the American people want from their Congress. Third, the individual mandate is simply unconstitutional. And if the individual mandate is not a part of the bill, if we don't force every single American to buy insurance, this Ponzi scheme simply doesn't work. Number 4, bringing 10 years of revenue in and paying out 6 years of benefit and calling that equal, that's a farce. Number 5, the lifetime benefits, challenging the lifetime benefits. We want everyone in America to have the access to health care without any question. The question we ask ourselves is, from an actuarial perspective, can we pay for it? A $2.7 trillion expansion, a new entitlement when we have a $76 trillion unfunded liability on the current entitlements. We simply cannot continue to dig a hole and call ourselves compassionate. There is nothing compassionate about increasing our entitlements by jeopardizing the future entitlements of Americans. And finally, we've heard lots of rhetoric.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to yield my friend an additional 30 seconds.
Gentleman's recognized, an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Madam Speaker, and Mr. Chairman. Finally, 7th point. We've heard lots of rhetoric about what we're doing to senior citizens and women. What we are facing is an opportunity to stop robbing future generations, to stop the unnecessary impact on the intergenerational cost. Without even taking into consideration the intergenerational cost, we consistently impact unborn Americans with legislation that passed under the former House. It is good to be in the House with a brand new Speaker. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to be a part of the Rules Committee.
Gentlelady from New York.
Madam Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 3 minutes.
Madam Speaker, the American people made it very clear in the last election that they want us to focus on one thing, jobs. But the new Republican majority has instead chosen to reopen an old ideological battle. I think that's a mistake. But the good news is that the American people will have the opportunity, right at the outset of this new Congress, to see the clear differences between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats believe that insurance companies should be prohibited from discriminating on the basis of pre-existing conditions. Republicans do not. Democrats believe that we should close the donut hole and reduce prescription drug prices for our seniors. Republicans do not. Democrats believe that young people should be allowed to remain on their parents' health insurance plan until the age of 26. Republicans do not. Democrats believe we should provide tax breaks to small businesses and subsidies to low-income Americans to help them pay for health insurance for their workers and their families. Republicans do not. And Democrats believe that we need to seriously address the budget deficit. Republicans do not, as the Congressional Budget Office made abundantly clear. The CBO told us yesterday that the bill to repeal health insurance reform would add $230 billion to the deficit over the next 10 years and another $1.2 trillion in the following 10 years. As far as I can tell, this is the most expensive one-page bill in American history. 114 words. That's $2 billion per word. And rather than address those budgetary facts, the new Republican majority has simply decided to ignore them, to cover their ears and pretend that the laws of arithmetic do not apply to them. In their first order of legislative business, the Republicans want to take health insurance reform and toss it in the trash. And how many hearings have they held on the impact of this repeal? 0. How many markups did they have? 0. And most shockingly, how many amendments will they consider in this bill? 0. The new Majority Whip, Mr. McCarthy, said after the election last November, and I quote, "When you look at the pledge to America that the Republicans have laid out, there is a cultural change in there. There is something that opens up the floor that hasn't been done for quite some time, where bills won't be written in the back room, where the bills have to be laid out for 72 hours, where bills actually have an open rule, where people can bring up amendments on the floor." So much for that. And instead of thoughtful, reasoned legislative language that addresses the health care issues, the Republicans replaced part of their repeal and replace strategy is just a list of happy talk sound bites. It's no more than a press release. So again, Madam Speaker, I believe we should be focusing on jobs and the economy. And in the meantime, I urge my colleagues to reject this rule and the underlying reckless bill. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Massachusetts yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from California.
Madam Speaker, we have 87 new Republicans on in the House of Representatives. There's no more impressive group than the 4 who are serving with us on the House Rules Committee. Among them, former Sheriff Nugent, the gentleman from Brooksville, Florida.
Gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, I apologize. It's new to me. Chairman, thank you so very much. We were there last night in the Rules Committee for 12 hours to hear testimony from a number of individuals on the Democratic side and also on the Republican side. But let me talk to you about this. Over the past year, I've met with thousands of people from throughout Florida's 5th Congressional District, whether they be small business owners, veterans, or Medicare recipients. They asked me to promise to repeal Obamacare. It's clear that the American people know more than our Democratic leadership in regards to what Americans want. Obamacare eliminates millions of American jobs, cuts hundreds of millions of dollars from Medicare, taxes by almost $500 billion over 10 years for 6 years' worth of coverage. Everybody knows that the health care system is broken and that reform is needed. However, the unconstitutional, job-killing mandates of Obamacare are not the answer. House Resolution 9 is an important step in Congress working with the American public to find real, meaningful solutions to our nation's health care needs. This is the people's house, and we should be listening to the people. House Resolution 9 will allow us to foster economic growth, job creation, lower health care premiums, and protect Medicare, and reform the medical malpractice system that is bankrupting America. For all these reasons, I'm grateful for my colleague from California, Mr. Dreyer, for introducing House Resolution 9, and I'm proud to be an original co-sponsor of that resolution. With that, I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from New York.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes. The gentleman from Colorado, a member of the Rules Committee, Mr. Polis.
Gentleman from Colorado is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the chair. I rise in opposition to the rule and the underlying bill, the most expensive one-page bill in the history of Congress at a cost to taxpayers of over $200 billion the first 10 years alone and over $1 trillion. Not only have the Republicans as the first bill that we are doing a rule on and facing here on the floor put forward the most expensive one-page bill in the history of Congress, but it is not paid for, Madam Speaker. In addition to not being paid for, they have waived many of the notice for transparency requirements, the regular order that they sought to establish with regard to the way that this Congress is run. Madam Speaker, there were many good ideas and good amendments that were brought forward by members of both parties yesterday during our session of the Rules Committee. I want to talk about a few in particular. One, my colleague from Michigan, Gary Peters, brought a proposal that would have made sure that this biggest one-page expenditure in the history of Congress did not raise taxes on small businesses. Unfortunately, that amendment is not made in order under this rule, and therefore H.R. 2 will be raising taxes on small businesses across the country that are now receiving tax credits for providing health care for their employees. There was also a lot of discussion, and I think it's important that the American people know, with regard to people with pre-existing conditions. Now, We all want to do something for people with pre-existing conditions. There was talk yesterday, and in fact, when we're talking about H.R. 9, there might be discussion in the future with regard to agreeing on high-risk pools for people with pre-existing conditions. But what this body is being asked to do today and next week is effectively replace something that works for people with pre-existing conditions, namely eliminating pricing discriminations, with some vague assurance on paper that perhaps someday some committees, some chairmen might consider, we ask them kindly to consider, something that will do something for people with pre-existing conditions. Well, Madam Speaker, that is simply not enough for the people that have pre-existing conditions today, for those who will in the future. If we want to talk about improving upon health care, there's ample room to do it, but not by eliminating any protections that exist. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California.
Madam Speaker, at this time I'm very privileged to yield 3 minutes to the distinguished former chairman of the Republican Conference, my friend from Columbus, Indiana, Mr. Pence.
Gentleman from Indiana is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I would ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the rule, but I rise from my heart with a deep sense of gratitude to the American people, to urge my colleagues in both parties to join us as we keep our promise to the American people and next week vote to repeal their government takeover of health care, lock, stock, and barrel. I know Democrats said at the time that they had made history. I said at the time, I thought we broke with history. We broke with some of our finest traditions, limited government, personal responsibility, and most profoundly, the consent of the governed. On a late Sunday night in March, the last majority had their say. On a Tuesday in November, the American people had their say. And that brings us to this moment. It is remarkable, though, to hear members of the minority explaining their opposition to this bill. Only in Washington, D.C., a year ago, only in Washington, D.C., could you say you were going to spend trillions of dollars and save people money. And this morning, only in Washington, D.C., could you say that repealing a $2.7 trillion government takeover of health care is actually going to cost money? Be pleased to yield.
Speaker, I thank my friend for yielding. I wondered if he might repeat that line. I think he said that only in Washington, D.C. can there be an interpretation that cutting $2.7 trillion in spending is actually going to end up costing the American people. Is that what the gentleman was saying? I thank my friend for yielding.
I thank the gentleman. I reclaim my time. Yes. It must be mystifying for people looking in this morning to hear about the most expensive one-page bill in American history. I say again, only in Washington, D.C. could a Congress vote to repeal a $2.7 trillion government takeover of health care, and the minority says it costs the American people money. Now, I know they don't like us to call it that, but let me explain. When you mandate that every American buy government-approved insurance, whether they want it or need it or not, when you create a government-run plan paid for with job-killing tax increases, when you provide public funding for abortion for the first time in American history, that's a government takeover of health care that violates the principles, the ideals, and the values of millions of Americans, and the American people know it. Now look, after we repeal Obamacare next week, we can start over with common sense reforms that will focus on lowering the cost of health insurance without growing the size of government. Republicans will waste no time in bringing greater freedoms to the American people to purchase health insurance the way they buy life insurance, the way they buy car insurance. We'll deal with responsible litigation reform. We'll even use the savings to cover pre-existing conditions. I urge my colleagues to join me in support of this rule, but join us as we keep our promise to the American people and repeal their government takeover of health care once and for all.
Gentleman's time's expired. The gentlelady from New York.
Madam Speaker, this is not a dispute between Republicans and Democrats about the $1.3 trillion. CBO, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, is saying that. I will now yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Matsui.
Gentlelady from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady for yielding me time. Madam Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to the rule and the bill before us. The bill would increase the national deficit by $230 billion, increase costs to individuals, families, and small business owners, and deny the American public the consumer protections they have been seeking for years. Repeal of the health care law would also mean that young adults would not be able to stay on their parents' plan. This is something that would have devastating effects on constituents of mine such as Elizabeth. Shortly after graduating college, she was dropped from her parents' plan and soon developed a severe thyroid condition. As a result, she had to purchase her own individual insurance plan, which proved to be a severe financial hardship for her and her parents. Thankfully, she was able to re-enroll under her parents' plan as of January 1st because of this health reform bill. Repeal would also mean that senior citizens in Sacramento would not see any relief from the Medicare Part D donut hole. The health reform bill will close the donut hole, which is critical to seniors in my district. One such senior, Gary, regularly pays over $2,000 a month for his prescription drugs. Repeal would mean that Gary and the thousands of other seniors in my district would see no relief from this Part D donut hole. This is unacceptable. Madam Speaker, a vote against this rule and against this bill is a vote to protect the American public from unfair insurance company practices, to provide relief to young and old alike, and to stay on the path to a fiscally responsible future. I urge my colleagues to vote down this rule and vote against the underlying legislation. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Madam Speaker, at this time I'm happy to yield 1 minute to a hardworking member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, which will be one of those committees when we pass HRES 9 that will be dealing with ensuring that every single American has access to quality health insurance. Our friend from Brentwood, Tennessee, Ms. Blackburn.
The gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, today we do begin a very important process, and it is a solid first step, and I stand to support this rule and to support repeal of this law, because we have on the books a law that doesn't improve the quality of health care. It will not reduce the cost of health care, and it is going to add billions to the exploding national debt. We have listened to the American people. They are smart, and they know that this law is unworkable. It won't deliver on the promises that they made, and the American people voted in overwhelming numbers to repeal it and replace it. That is the action that we are going to take. Congress cannot wait any longer to get this irresponsible law out of our doctors' offices, out of our lives, and off the books. We in Tennessee have lived through the experiment of government-run health care called TennCare. Tennessee could not afford it, and the American people know that this nation cannot afford a TennCare type program on a national level. I support the rule. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from New York.
Madam Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Michigan, our ranking member of Ways and Means, Mr. Levin.
The gentleman from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
Ask unanimous consent to revise and extend.
Without objection.
This is what the Republicans are after, what their repeal would mean. It would take away from millions of Americans coverage for kids with pre-existing conditions, coverage for young adults under 26. Recommended preventive care would be taken away. It would take away lower drug costs for seniors. And this is what the Republican repeal would do. It would give back to insurance companies unreasonable premium increases, unjust policy terminations, rescissions. It would take away this. It would give back profits and CEO salaries to insurance companies, not health care benefits. It would give back annual and lifetime limits on benefits. It gives back to insurance companies discrimination ability to vote no on this repeal, a misfortune for the United States of America.
Gentleman's time's expired. The gentleman from California. Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I thank the gentleman for yielding. We've heard a lot of arguments on the other side of the aisle in regard to the $230 billion cost, and on our side of the aisle, of course, only in America can something actually cost $1.15 trillion, and eliminating it then all of a sudden cost $230 billion. But yes, Ms. Slaughter, only in America, only in this Congress, numbers do lie. Let me just say that what we have been talking about on this side of the aisle, of course, is the voice of the American people. You know, it's about 3,000 years ago that a little shepherd boy walked into that valley of death, looking up at all of those Philistines and that 9-foot giant Goliath from Gath, who had that coat of mail, he had the sword, he had the shield, he had the javelin. And what did little David have? He had a little pouch and a handful of stones. But he hit that giant right between the head, brought him to his knees, and then cut off the head of the snake. That pouch and those little pebbles represent the voice of the American people. That's what we have on this side of the aisle. That's why we are going to pass HRES 9, and we're going to pass HR 2 next week, and we're going to deliver our promise to the American people to eliminate, to repeal Obamacare. The American people have spoke loudly. They don't like this bill. The Democratic majority in the Senate and the President have one last chance to make amends. I think they'll do it, and I yield back.